Next on the news. Pope Francis presides over the celebration of the Epiphany of the Lord in St. Peter's Basilica. President Biden addresses the nation on the one-year anniversary of the storming of the Capitol.
Yet another jab, and we're not talking about a vaccine, but a blow to New York City's restaurant industry. I'm Jessica Easthope with how one small business is rolling with the punches through the Omicron surge.
Plus, the CDC updates its recommendation for booster shots for children. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. Thursday is the Feast of the Epiphany, celebrating the arrival of the three kings who came to worship baby Jesus shortly after his birth. Pope Francis took it as an opportunity to urge Catholics to be more like the Magi. Pope Francis celebrated Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, and in his homily for the Solemnity of the Epiphany, the Holy Father spoke about the pilgrimage of the three kings.
Brothers and sisters, as it was for the Magi, so it is for us. The journey of life and faith demands a deep desire and inner zeal.
Francis says we should look to the Magi as an example of how to discover a better life of faith.
Faith, if it is to grow, has to begin ever anew from desire. It must be sparked by desire to take up the challenge of entering into a living and lively relationship with God.
And like the three kings who journeyed to adore baby Jesus, the Pope urges believers to spend more time praying in front of the Eucharist, to question our own journey of faith and be open to new paths. He related that to the synod process.
To journey together, to listen to one another, so that the Spirit can suggest to us new ways and paths to bring the gospel to the hearts of those who are indifferent, distant, without hope.
And to gain the confidence that even in the darkest nights, a star continues to shine, the star of Jesus.
Brothers and sisters, let us dream. Let us seek, let us adore.
Aside from attending Mass, there are many ways to celebrate the Epiphany. One tradition that's spreading around the world is to bless your house. It's done now in the beginning of the year, so you can invite God into your home and place your family under his protection. Here to explain this tradition further is Father Chris Henyu, rector of the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph. Father, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Happy New Year, Christine.
Happy New Year to you. And so how does someone go about blessing their house? I know you need chalk and it's numbers and letters, and explain it to us.
I'll happily. Why do we bless our homes? We bless our homes because, we want God's protection upon us, upon all who enter our house, that it may be a dwelling place of love, of God's presence. And so families will go and will bless their homes. And they'll do it by using chalk. You take the chalk. Why chalk? Because we want to do it again next year. So you're not going to be drawing magic marker on your doorways.
Right, you're erasing it.
And we on the lintels of the doors, which remind us of the Old Testament, where those who place the blood of the Lamb on the doors of their houses will be saved, and the Lord will protect them. And so the year kind of is the bookends of it. So it's 2022.
Right.
20 in the front and 22 at the end. And in the middle, there's a few letters that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the letters are CMB.
Okay.
And so it would be 20 plus C plus M plus B plus 22. Now, this is not a mathematical equation.
It looks like
sounds
it.
like an algebra
What
question.
do the letters stand for?
So CMB, Christus mansionem benedicat, which means the blessing of Christ over our house.
Oh,
May
nice.
Christ bless our house.
So do you need a priest to come to your house to do it, or can I do it myself?
I've seen both, and certainly being a priest, I've gone to different family members' homes or my own parents' homes, but it's not necessary. I've seen priests bless chalk. Sometimes prior to the Epiphany, the Feast of the Epiphany or Three Kings Day, priests will bless the chalk that will be distributed. I've seen some parishes give little Ziploc baggies with a piece of chalk and the prayers that would be done. So there's plenty of options, but I think it's a nice opportunity. If you have a piece of chalk at home, just bless it.
Thanks for explaining it to us, Father Chris Henyu, rector of the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph. Pleasure to have you here.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Christine.
Brooklyn's huge Three Kings Day parade was canceled this year. For the second year in a row, the celebration has been called off due to COVID concerns. Instead, they held a toy drive, asking people to drop off their donations to the San Herman Record Store in Williamsburg. The parade's founder says, God willing, they'll be able to celebrate next year in 2023.
For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power as a violent mob breached the Capitol. But they failed. They failed. And on this day of remembrance, we must make sure that such attack never happens again.
President Biden speaking Thursday morning, 1 year after the chaos at the Capitol when protesters tried to stop the electoral count. Biden declared it was God's truth that the rioters were looking to subvert the Constitution. He tore into former President Trump and said those who stormed the Capitol came here in rage and not in service of America, but rather in the service of one man. In response, President Trump issued a statement that said in part, Biden, who is destroying our nation with insane policies of open borders, corrupt elections, disastrous energy policies, unconstitutional mandates, and devastating school closures, used my name today to try to further divide America. This political theater is all just a distraction for the fact that Biden has completely and totally failed. Meanwhile, a bipartisan House committee is piecing together the facts of how the riot at the Capitol unfolded last year. So far, the committee has obtained tens of thousands of records and interviewed hundreds of witnesses and issued dozens of subpoenas. Its work is far from over, but as Britt Conway reports, we could have some answers in a matter of months.
1 year ago today,
this is our capital!
Deadly violence in D.C. as thousands of people descended upon the U.S. Capitol trying to prevent the electoral vote certification for the 2020 election. Since then, more than 700 people have been charged in connection with the insurrection, and a House Select Committee has been entrenched in a sweeping investigation of the attack, working to establish the definitive narrative of what happened that day and what led up to it, offer a series of recommendations to prevent it from happening again, and if they discover criminal activity, send it to the Department of Justice. But finding hard evidence of wrongdoing hasn't been easy. The committee is fighting pushback from former President Donald Trump, including nearly a dozen challenges by his allies. Still, the investigation presses on. So far, the committee has conducted interviews with more than 300 people, collected around 35,000 documents, and issued more than 50 subpoenas. It's also been seeking phone records and bank records, and digging into texts and other communications. In the coming months, there could be prime-time public hearings. Then in the summer, we could see an interim report. And ahead of the 2022 midterm elections in November, it could all be wrapped up. But today, on the anniversary, the focus is on safety, monitoring possible threats on the ground and online. I'm Britt Conway, reporting.
Rallies were held on the one-year anniversary of the Capitol riot around the tri-state area. In Brooklyn's Grand Army Plaza, the Defend Democracy rally drew political leaders such as Attorney General Letitia James and Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso, who say they hope the demonstration will send a clear message about their resolve to continue to fight for democracy and voting rights. A national leader in the pro-life movement, Kathleen Gallagher, is retiring from her post at the New York State Catholic Conference. Gallagher has been working for the conference for almost 40 years. In that time, she's not only represented the New York State bishops, but she's advocated against abortion, capital punishment, and euthanasia. She will officially retire at the end of January, where she will then serve as a consultant for the conference. New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan had this to say following the announcement: "No one in New York State or across the country has done more to advocate on behalf of all human life from conception until natural death than Kathy Gallagher. She is a giant of the pro-life movement who my brother bishops past and present have depended for nearly 4 decades to fight for the most vulnerable among us. We thank her for her tireless service." There's a lot more news headed your way. COVID is making it rough for restaurants to stay in business. We revisit one spot in Queens to find out how they're doing. Also, the CDC is making new recommendations for booster shots for children. And he says he leaned on his faith to get him out of the rubble. We'll hear from a survivor of that deadly tornado in Kentucky who has just been released from the hospital.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
The pandemic has taken a toll on businesses everywhere. Restaurants in particular have been hard hit. We've been keeping tabs on one spot in Glendale that has been struggling to stay open. Jessica Easthope just went back there. We'll have that in a moment. But first, a look back at what was happening there nearly 2 years ago.
The 5 boroughs are held hostage.
After 27 years, it's come down to the wire for your Man's Irish Pub in Glendale and its owner, Jimmy O'Reilly.
Just about 6 feet, maybe more.
Your Man's has been closed for nearly 6 months. The business is now scraping by on a few $100s a week, losing money and customers by the day.
Nassau County is open, and it's only a few miles from here, and people are leaving it because they can go out east and eat inside. I wouldn't have enough room for tables. You have to leave people walk by.
Space restrictions don't allow for outdoor dining here.
To me, it's a liability. It doesn't pay. It's a waste of time. You cannot pay the bills by a few tables outside for any place.
According to Partnership for New York City, when the pandemic is over, roughly 1/3 of the city's 240,000 small businesses may never open again.
This is a partition.
Earlier this summer, Jimmy redesigned the entire bar for social distancing when his doors reopened, but they never did. Jimmy says he's thought of every possible precaution he could take to make it safe for people to return to the bar. He's even installed this hook so no one has to touch the door handle.
Is there a way where we can do something safely with indoor dining? So far, we have not had that moment.
But Jimmy says he can't win.
Maybe all I've done is in vain. It's backwards we're going, and they don't seem to want to open.
Jimmy spent more than $120,000 from loans just to keep the lights on. If things continue this way, he says he won't survive for more than 3 months.
Never in my life thought this was going to happen. It's every business that's going through torture.
Even with no end in sight, Jimmy says he'll continue to raise the bar, making his pub as safe as possible for reopening, hoping your Man's will live to see the day. In Glendale, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Now the big question is, has it really gotten any better for your Man's Irish Pub and restaurants like it since we were there last? Or is the latest Omicron surge making it worse? Will it ever return to the normal we remember? Jessica Easthope went back to Glendale to find out.
Everything's stocked and ready for a full house, but it's not likely there will be more than just a few customers today at your Man's Irish Pub in Glendale.
It was getting back to some kind of normalcy, and then the Omicron came out, and it destroyed everything.
This is now the lunch rush. Owner Jimmy O'Reilly remembers a time when he would make more than $1,000 during lunch. But over the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, those memories have been replaced. He's down 65% of his business.
You don't know what's going to come around the corner. They could close it down tomorrow. I'm sure they won't. Hopefully the new mayor doesn't. He promised.
From the outside looking in, Jimmy's precautions and provisions seemed like a business owner trying to appease city leaders, show them that he could comply. But that's not how Jimmy sees it at all.
The barriers I put up for my family, they work here. My friends, my employees here, they're friends, they're like family.
Would you do it all again?
I would.
It costs Jimmy $17,000 a week just to keep his doors open. He says businesses have been tossed aside, and he imagines the city feels just like he does, broken.
I still love New York. It needs to be put back together the way it was. Mayor Eric Adams, I hope you bring this beautiful city back.
With business worse now than during the height of the pandemic, Jimmy says his story isn't one of loss, but of resilience. He's going to keep fighting. That's one thing he'll never lose. In Glendale, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Mayor Eric Adams has unveiled a plan to help city hospitals battle the COVID crisis. To handle the surge, he's directing over $100 million into city-run hospitals to hire more staff. $27 million in loans will be offered to nonprofit hospitals that serve primarily low-income patients. As of Monday, there were 5,500 people in city hospitals with COVID-19. That's the most since the spring of 2020. The CDC has updated its recommendations for the Pfizer vaccine booster to now include children as young as 12, at least 5 months after getting the first 2 shots. A CDC advisory committee voted 13-1 in favor of the expanded use of boosters for children 12 to 15 on Wednesday. The CDC says vaccinations among that age group has slowed recently. The White House says beginning next week, Americans will be able to have the cost of rapid at-home COVID tests reimbursed by their insurers. This news comes 2 weeks after President Biden said his administration will buy 500 million rapid tests to be distributed free to the public. There's no word yet when those free tests will be available. Schools throughout the Diocese of Brooklyn have all received a supply of at-home testing kits from New York City. That's according to Superintendent of Schools Thomas Chadzuko. The diocese is also waiting for an order of test kits from New York State. Dr. Chadzuko says schools will begin distributing the tests once they receive more information from the Department of Health. The Archdiocese of New York says it too will soon hand out COVID-19 at-home tests to families and staff at its Catholic schools. The tests are to be distributed to any student or staff member who has COVID-like symptoms or was in a classroom where a positive case was identified. Superintendent of Schools for the Archdiocese of New York, Michael Deegan, said our #1 focus continues to be offering an excellent academic program in a safe and nurturing environment. These kits will go a long way in ensuring our students and faculty have access to proper testing should it be needed. A prayer vigil was held for the victims of one of the deadliest fires in Philadelphia's history. 12 people, including 8 children, died in Wednesday's fire in a 3-story building that had been converted into 2 apartments. 26 people were living there. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Officials say the building had smoke detectors, but they weren't working. In a statement, Archbishop Nelson Perez of Philadelphia extended his condolences to all those in mourning, saying, "Please join me in praying fervently for the happy repose of those who have died, for the speedy recovery of those who were injured, and in gratitude for the fire, police, and medical personnel responding to this tragedy. May the Lord wrap his loving mantle of mercy around them all." Weeks after a deadly tornado demolished a candle factory in Kentucky, killing 8 and injuring dozens, one of those victims is finally returning home. Jim Douglas was nearly crushed to death by the rubble and prayed to God rescuers would find him. Brooke Buckner reports on his long journey from that pile back home.
Thank you all very much.
A big day for Jim Douglas, surrounded by family and Mercy Health Lord's hospital staff.
I was here for Christmas and New Year's,
For the health and safety of our patients and visitors,
they made it as best as they could here, but I'm getting out.
Douglas is on the road to recovery after tornado debris nearly crushed him during his shift at the Mayfield Candle Factory.
The wall had collapsed on the right side of my head, and then the debris it was like twisting around me. And there was nothing I could do to try to keep my limbs in or anything. It just happened so fast.
He says he leaned on his faith to get him out of the rubble.
I prayed for God to get me out, and then after I was there for a couple hours, I prayed for him just to take me home because I couldn't take the pain anymore. But he chose to answer the first prayer, and he got me out of there. I lost some friends that they're no longer with us. So it's a blessing to be alive.
The hospital staff says he made a lot of progress during his stay, thanks to his positive attitude.
I can move forward now and get as far as I can in life. I've been given a second chance, and a lot of people haven't.
And he's getting out just in time for his birthday.
I didn't miss everything.
He says there's a lot to look forward to.
Being with my 2 sons, that's 2 of them, and then my dog Clyde. I miss my dog, and I know he misses me. I still have a home to go to. My home wasn't destroyed, so I'm blessed.
Now he's relearning basic tasks to get back to where he left off.
Showering, cooking, just all the normal things, shave, brush my teeth, but it's a long road. I got a long way to go.
But he plans to get through it with his bright outlook.
Bye.
Bye.
That was Brooke Buckner reporting. Jim will turn 58 on January 14th. Happy birthday to him. And the Diocese of Owensboro in Kentucky is still accepting tornado relief funds. If you'd like to donate, just go to their website, owensborodiocese.org/give, and make sure to click on Tornado Relief Catholic Charities for the donation destination. Still to come on Currents News, we'll take you to Mexico and show you how Three Kings Day is celebrated there. And then from the Currents archives, a lesson in baking in Brooklyn, preparing the bread of kings for the Epiphany. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. It's a big celebration in Mexico as people gather to eat the traditional ring-shaped king cake and drink some hot chocolate. They gathered on the eve of the Epiphany to enjoy the tasty treats. And by the way, that king cake isn't really cake, it's sweetbread. And while the tradition of eating it started in Latin American countries, people everywhere put it on their tables on Three Kings Day. Here's a look back at when our Michelle Powers learned what goes into baking this bread of kings.
Inside Don Paco Lopez Bakery, employees are pounding, kneading, and frosting Rosca de Reyes. That's king's bread, enough to feed Kings County, Brooklyn. Don Paco, the founder of the bakery, the first Mexican business on 4th Avenue in Sunset Park, says he could never count all the breads, but there's a lot. Every January, he makes over 1,000 ahead of the Epiphany, when the three kings arrived in Bethlehem bearing gifts for the baby Jesus.
Why is in circle? Because he's the live family.
Miguel Lopez, Don Paco's son, now manages the family bakery. He says the entire bread is symbolic. They even tuck a tiny figurine of the baby Jesus into the dough.
In Catholic meaning, we hide baby Jesus from King Herodes.
These bakers move with speed, but it's not the easiest food to make.
You're doing good.
I'm doing okay?
Yeah, you're doing good.
I've made pizza before.
Just don't throw it all the way to the ceiling.
Besides the basic ingredients,
sugar, eggs, and a little bit of flour.
The bread is topped with candied orange peels, cherries, cactus, and fig, imported from Mexico.
You don't have to sell mine if you don't like it.
No.
The family secret?
Be proud what you're making. I think is the key of success.
Miguel also finds pride that as the yeast rises, so does the tradition around the city.
It's not only Mexican now. It's around.
So I can celebrate my pride here.
Yeah, that definitely. And I bet you every single year you will come in to get the Rosca de Reyes.
That's for sure. For Currents, I'm Michelle Powers.
It looks delicious. I wonder why Michelle hasn't made us any yet. I'll have to ask her. That is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.